I'm excited to talk to Tim McGraw about that, and I'm just excited in general to talk to Tim McGraw. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. What an introduction. Thank you for that.
Sadly, we've run out of time for the interview, but I want to ask you first, as a bit of a road dog, you've been on the road for a really long time. How are you doing at home?
You know, it's funny because I was talking to this with my wife just the other day, talking about this. And, for years, I've 30 or so years I've been playing music and playing on the road and starting with clubs and working my way up and always working. And before that, all through high school, I always had a job. I was always working. And for years, I would tell my wife or I would tell people that work for me, it's like, gosh, I wish, I need to take, 6 months, a year off and recharge my artistic batteries, because, there's only so much life left in that. And I want to make sure that I've got it at max power when I go in and make records and make music. I don't want to just mail it in. I always want to be present when I'm doing it. And I don't want to get tired of the grind. I don't want to get tired of what I'm doing. So maybe I need to take a break. And then all this happened and we had a tour planned and everything. And I thought, well, I guess I'll get a break out of it. And it wasn't 2 months into it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to find a place to play. I got to be on stage. I miss my band. I miss the music. I miss the energy. I miss the connection with people. I miss it. I really do. One of the silver linings, I guess, to this is a couple of them is I've gotten to spend a lot of time with my family. My oldest daughter is an actress in LA, but she's come home for a little while. My middle daughter graduated from Stanford this year. She's come home for a bit. And our youngest daughter graduated high school. And one of the really good things about that is in March, when they stopped going to school, it's not been so good for our youngest daughter because she's been stuck with us the entire time. But for us, it's been pretty good because knowing what happened with our other two daughters, they go through their senior year and it's over before you know it, then they're off to college and they're off doing their thing. You didn't get to spend that much time with them the last year of life at home. And having Audrey at home for this time has been really a blessing to us to be able to spend that time with her and really just be sort of locked up with her and get to hang out with her and all the time that we wouldn't have had with her had it been any other way. And then playing music. It's just, my guys on the road, my band, my crew, they're some of my best friends. And most of those guys have been with me for a really, really long time. And not having those guys around and not being with those guys, not having that energy and that infusion every night of that drug that we love as musicians, to be on stage and play in front of people, to not have that it's I missed it for sure.
I'm happy you brought up your family there because, listening to this record, and it's an interesting time. It's a weird time to put out a record, but I also think it's an opportune time to put out a record, especially talking about some of the things you talk about on this record, in particular around family. Just take a listen to this.
So I stopped off at a Texaco, bought a Slim Jim and a Coke, parked out by the water just to watch that river flow. Grabbed my guitar from the backseat, wrote a song just for me. And I sung it for the blue sky and a couple live oak trees. I thought of home, grabbed my phone from my pocket. I called Mama.
That is Tim McGraw, and I Called Mama from his new album, Here on Earth. Tim, that hit me in a bad way because I'm very far away from my family right now. I'm very far away from my mom. And it turned me into a bit of as we say back home, a bit of a sook. Like I got a bit sad listening to it. And I was interested about that song because when I was reading about it, I know that one of your best friends wrote it, Lance Miller, but I also know that when you heard it, you immediately wanted to record it. And I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, my mom, I'm really close to my mom. My mom's been my backbone for a long time. And, I got that song the day they wrote it. Lance with a few friends wrote that song and they sent me just the acoustic work tape of it right away. Instantly, when it first started, that sort of shuffle groove, Windows Roll Down Driving sort of groove has been sort of my go-to kind of music my whole life. And certainly as an artist, my recording music. I mean, we had, Just to See You Smile, Shotgun Rider, those kinds of songs. It got my attention right away just because of the groove. And then when I listened to the song and heard the song, and this was before the COVID thing happened and all the stuff that's going on recently in the world's happened. So instantly, then I heard the lyric about mom, and it's sort of a straight ahead, simple lyric that pushes all the right buttons, says all the right things, hits you right where it hurts in your heart when you're thinking about your mom and your family. So I did all those things, and I knew I wanted to record it. I wanted to play it it made me cry right away, and I wanted to play it for Faith, but I wanted to sing it to her, see if she liked the song. So it took me about 10 minutes to learn the first verse and chorus just to sing to her after I'd heard the demo. And when I tried to sing it to her, every time I would get to the hook line, I would just fall apart. Gobs of tears would come, and I couldn't finish the song. So when that happens to you as an artist, you know that that's something you have to pay attention to, and something that you have to go in and at least try to give it a shot in recording it. And but after all this happens, when we finished mixing it in the middle, and then the song took on a whole different meaning, a bigger meaning. I don't say a different meaning, a bigger meaning, because you can listen to the lyric and ride along with the lyric and get what it's saying. But with all that's going on in the world now, I think that there's a whole spectrum of lyrics on either side of that lyric now that you can put together that means a whole lot more. It's more, now it's about who's important to you, who matters to you, who can put their arms around you and make you feel better about what's going on in the world and what's happening today, and who can settle you down, who can find your center for you. And that's what that song really means to me now in a lot of different ways.
I want to go back to something you said earlier when you said, I've been on the road for such a long time, and you referred to it as the sort of drug that you get from being on stage. But alongside that drug you get from being on stage, it's a lonely and risky world when you start out. When you're playing bar rooms, when you're playing beer halls, when you're playing, you're playing gigs, it's a risky life for a child of a mother. Do you recall what your mother said to you, or anything she might have felt when you said, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to be a musician"?
I do. In fact, I recall it almost every day. It's going to probably make me fall apart, but I was in college, and since I was probably 11 or 12 years old, I wanted to be a lawyer. I'd seen the movie And Justice for All with Al Pacino, and I wanted to be a lawyer from that point on. I knew I was going to make good grades in high school. I was going to get into college, and I was going to go into pre-law, then I was going to go to law school, and that was going to be my trajectory that I was going to take in life. So I got out of high school, got into college, and right off the bat in college, I picked up a guitar and started playing music. Then I started to learn how to float kegs at my fraternity. And so the law career started slowly drifting away.
Yeah.
And so I had to get my nerve up. When I made the decision and I wanted to move to Nashville, I had some water skis I had to sell. I sold my car, I sold my shotgun. I mean, I sold everything that I had and tried to put some money together to move to Nashville. Then I had to call my mom. And knowing, because we had a hard life growing up, she had a hard life, and knowing how much she wanted me to succeed and how much she wanted me to get a college degree, I had to make that phone call and tell her that after 2.5 years, I was going to drop it all, and I was going to move to Nashville and become a country singer after never being a musician much my whole life. I sang a lot growing up. I sang in church, but never, I was an athlete and doing all that other stuff. And I was scared to death to tell her, not scared of my mom because I knew what a sweet lady she was, but I knew she was a tough lady too. But the words that she said to me says, "I'm surprised you haven't done it already, and I think you should go ahead." And to get that affirmation from your mother, to throw everything away, sell everything you have, buy a Greyhound bus ticket, and arrive at Nashville at 3 a.m, and she says, "Go do it."
And she knows how risky it is. She knows how risky it is for you,
Sure. And she knew that I was choosing a life that was going to be hard, and 99% chance it wasn't going to work out.
Well, thanks, Mom.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. She's, like I said, she's been my backbone for a long time.
That's a beautiful story. I want to play another song from the record. Take a listen to this.
It's like we open our eyes for the very first time, where we find out why we're here on Earth.
That is Tim McGraw and Here on Earth. And I heard you say this quote by artist, activist Gloria Vanderbilt became the centerpiece for this new record. And I want to read the quote here. It says, "We are not put on this earth to see through one another. We are put on this earth to see one another through." Why did that quote speak to you right now?
Yeah, it was funny because when we were putting this record together, like I said, it was before all this happened. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to put together sort of a tapestry of life, in a lot of ways, sort of a 30,000 foot view of life as we see it, and also be able to dive in at different points throughout the album and get really intimate and get into personal relationships and your relationship with your family, your relationship with your community, and all those things. And that quote really sort of meant a lot to all of us as we were putting this project together. And then as we moved further along, Here on Earth was a song that came to me from some songwriter friends of mine. And when I heard it, it really started really making a lot of sense to the quote, to what I was trying to do with the project. It wasn't like I was trying to make a concept record. It wasn't like I was trying to make this linear story or anything like that. But I really wanted to tell a story of life in a lot of different ways, these little vignettes. And Here on Earth became sort of like it did everything at once. It said it all at one time. It said it reflected what that quote said, but it also reflected what I wanted to say all throughout the album in one song. So that's why it became the tentpole for the album. It also became the title of the album, and it became sort of the guidepost for the rest of how this record went together. Because then it made sense to go from LA to Chevy Spaceship to Here on Earth, and then go to like Hold You Tonight or something like that, or Sheryl Crow. Those songs started making more sense to fit together differently because they were different styles in a lot of ways. But when you find a song that's the centerpiece of it, it makes a lot of sense for the philosophy of the record, and everything starts tying together for you.
I mean, there's so much you're saying here that is sticking out to me. And, you know, I'm going back to when you were talking about how you wanted to be a lawyer. That says something to me. The idea that you would be inspired by we're able to help one another through. And, you know, I'm a really big country music fan, and I spend a lot of time not just listening to country music, but weirdly thinking about country music. And in the past, you know, month or so, or 2 months or so, I have to say it's been an interesting time for country music, because voices that I didn't expect to talk about race after the killing of George Floyd started talking about race. The Opry put out a statement about Black Lives Matter. Luke Combs, who I know you went on tour with, one of the biggest country stars in the world right now, posts a black square, not to mention, you know, people like Margaret Price. It feels like a different moment. And, you know, when I was reading about this moment, the thing that kept on coming up was you, that Tim McGraw posted this post about, you know, black hands and white hands all coming together on Instagram. And you've never shied away in an industry that doesn't always reward speaking up. You've never shied away from speaking up about what you think is right, be it about guns, be it about anti-black racism. I just want to know where that comes from. Like, is it part of your upbringing? Like, where does that come from? Because it takes a fearlessness about what you know is right.
Well, you know, I'm sure, back to my mom again, that it comes from my mom, and certainly my community that I grew up in. Because there were a lot of really great people in that community that really thought the way you just described, and the way that I try to live my life. And one guy in particular was my coach, my high school coach, Coach Butler. There was something innate in his personality about being respectful of people, being respectful of who people are, no matter what their circumstances are, no matter where they came from, no matter what color they were, no matter what their belief system was. If they were good people, then you should respect that person. And it came from my mom, it came from my coach, it came from a lot of people in my community. And it was just, I think, probably innate in the way that I felt growing up. I never felt that there was any other way to be. And I'm not going to speak for country music or music in general or anybody else. I can only speak for me, and I can speak in my heart and in my soul in the way that Faith and I grew up, in the way that we love people and respect people, in the way that we've taught our daughters to grow up and love and respect people, is the way that we feel like is best for us and best for our community, and best. If you can look in the mirror and feel that way about yourself, good on you. If you can look at your kids and know that they feel that way about you, good on them and good on you. And if they can take that and take it to their school, take it to their community, take it to their country, and then take it to the world, then we're doing good things.
I can tell you think so deeply about it. I mean, I read over your book, Songs of America, Patriotism, Protest, and the Music That Made a Nation. And it reminded me of this conversation I had with Killer Mike, incredible rapper from Atlanta, part of Run the Jewels. And he said, you know, protest shouldn't be something that we look down upon. I mean, this nation was built on protest. Protest is the most American thing we can do. I am curious, after, you know, reading a little bit of that book that you wrote and listening to your statements, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, about the relationship between protesting and being patriotic.
Well, I think that they're hand in hand, right? They're equal sides to the same coin. We can't progress unless we're told that we need to do something different. Unless we see that we need to do something different, unless somebody shows us that we need to do something different. And then we got to pay attention to somebody telling us that we need to do something different. And that's the way that the world evolves. That's the way people evolve. That's the way our country has evolved. And that's the way we're going to get further down the road, is to pay attention to other people, understand what somebody's saying, and try to move forward from that point. And if we don't do that, then ultimately we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to our families, into our community. And if we don't start paying attention to what people are saying and try to do our best to correct it, then we're not going to move forward. And that's only going to be detrimental to us. Not going to be detrimental to the people that you think are other than you. It's going to be detrimental to you. And what you give out and what you put into the world and how you treat people is how you're going to get what you're going to get back. So it's just, to me, it's the most natural thing in the world. And it's the way that we need to pay attention. And you know what? If you're not going to pay attention to me, I'm going to yell and scream until you do.
Mm. I appreciate your words on that. I want to change tack a little bit because I don't have you forever, but take a listen to this.
I'm gonna get fired if I don't get some sleep. My long lost buddies say I'm getting in too deep, but I like it, I love it, I want some more of it. I try so hard, I can't rise above it. Don't know what it is about that little gal's loving, but I like it, I love it, I want some more of it.
Tim McGraw is my guest. His album Here on Earth is out everywhere August 21st. That is a selfish pick of mine that I said I wanted to play you because I listened to that song an awful lot around my house. It's called I Like It, I Love It. And it's massive. It's not just massive in country music. It went to number 25 on the Hot 100 in the pop charts. It gets played at every sports game up here. I know it gets played on the Predators when they score a goal in Nashville. And it leads me to, how good is it to hear that song, by the way? You must never get sick of that.
Well, I sound like a kid.
It is interesting. I was watching an interview the other day of you, and you said something that caught me. You said, if I was to do a medley of songs I wrote, I'd be here for maybe an hour or two. But if I was to do a medley of songs that I recorded, I'd be here for a couple of days. And I don't know if that's a skill that we value enough. The value to hear a song, to hear something else in it, and to go, I think this is either something meaningful or something that could be a hit. I don't know if you can answer this question, but what are you looking for?
Well, to be fair, I do try to write for every project that I do.
I know that as well, yeah.
But I don't I'm really hard on my own writing. So if mine's got to really, really beat something out in order to make it. But ultimately what I want to do is look, if a song comes to me and it moves me, then I have to, by the time it gets to you, then it's third generation. So it's got to be something that hits me so hard and hits me right between the eyes so strong. And it's got to sound like, to me, feel like I can do this and it's going to be coming from me and be embedded into my bones by the time I deliver it to you. Because if I don't do that and I don't deliver it to you that way, because it's third generation by the time it gets to you, then it's not going to move you. You're not going to feel anything. So it's got to have so much emotion, so much heart and soul that's poured into me from hearing it, that I can get enough of that back out that it's going to hit you enough to affect you.
Can you tell right away? Can you tell right away when you hear a song?
Most of the time. I mean, there's a few times probably that it's taken a while, but most of the time it's usually within the first verse that I know whether or not I want to record the song or if it's going to do that for me, and if it's going to work, and if it sounds like a song that I would do. And I'm always looking for songs that speak to the collective and speaks to the bigger view and speaks to the bigger person that we are in a lot of ways. And that's the kind of music that I always look for, because that's what moves me. And again, if it's going to move me, I got to be able to move you.
I want to play one more song before we go. Take a listen to this.
I went skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Blue Manchu, and I looked deeper and I spoke sweeter and I gave forgiveness I've been denying. And he said, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying.
That is Tim McGraw and Live Like You Were Dying. Interesting song because it's a song that can get played at weddings, and it's a song that can get played at funerals, and it would be entirely at home at both. A hugely commercially successful song. On that, I wanted to know two things. One is, does it always feel like yours when it becomes so big, when it becomes a big part of other people's lives like that?
Never. That song in particular, and Humble and Kind, are two examples that I feel like when I'm on stage performing that song that has nothing to do with me, that I'm the fortunate one, because I'm the one that gets to stand there and be sort of the conduit for this song, and I get to see how it's affected people's lives. Particularly Live Like You Were Dying, that song. When we play that song every night, and it's special to me because it came along at a time in my life when my father was dying of cancer. We recorded it right after he passed away. My uncle was in the studio, my dad's older brother, when we recorded it. So it had a lot of meaning to me. But when we do that song, I can look out at the audience and I can see people putting their arms around each other. And I can see people crying. And right away, you know that something's going on in that person's life or that family's life or those people's lives, whether it's directly related to what this song is saying or not. Something is going on in their lives that this song means something to them. It's become a part of their story. And when you do that, I think it escapes you in a lot of ways. It's not about has nothing to do with you anymore. It's got everything to do with how they interpret that song, how they internalize that song, and how that song has been a catharsis for them. And to me, being an artist, I mean, other than sitting down and writing the song, recording the song, doing all the technical work and everything involved with it, playing all the instruments and singing the song to somebody, other than that, I don't know how I can get much better as an artist than to have that feeling on stage and see those people's faces and know that you're a part of their lives in some sort of way, or that song's a part of their lives.
Yeah, because I almost said to you when you were saying it, I almost said to you what a pressure that must be for that moment, but also really what a blessing it must be for that moment. And Tim, if you're comfortable with this, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I do know a little bit about the story of that song, and I do know a little bit of the story of your father. Your father's legendary baseball player, Tug McGraw. Where you were with him when that song was written and how he came back into your life. As much as you want to, can you just give us a little bit of a background for people who might not know the story around that song?
Yeah, it was, Tug was pretty sick when I first heard that song. And in fact, it was another song that I wasn't sure that I wanted to record because I didn't know. My first thought was, am I being gratuitous in recording this song because of what it means to me and the time in my life that I'm going in? And then I thought, well, knowing Tug, that if he thought that this song was about him, he would have the biggest smile on his face when he passes on than anybody in the world to know that this song was about him all the time. But ultimately, it came back to what this song would mean for people when they heard it, that were going through the same thing that I was going through, the same thing that my family was going through, my brothers and sisters were going through. When it came to what this song would mean in the bigger picture, that was the decision I made to make it. And oddly enough, I never played the song for Tug, never played the demo for Tug. He never heard it. And I learned it just enough to know it. And then I quit listening to it. And after Tug had passed away, he passed away in January. And in February, we went in the studio. And I invited my Uncle Hank. My Uncle Hank McGraw, my Tug's older brother, who played pro baseball for 13 years, legendary sort of a civil rights leader in baseball. I mean, he wouldn't stay in hotels if the black players couldn't stay. He'd sit on the back of the bus with the black players. He stood up for those. He's a great guy. And so having him in the studio, and we didn't record it till about 3 a.m. And I told the band, I looked around, I said, I think this is a good time to cut it. Uncle Hank's sitting on the couch over there. We were in upstate New York in Allaire Studios. And it was right outside of Woodstock is where the studio was. And we'd camped out up there at the studio for 3 weeks to record this album, hanging out together. And that song just, when we recorded it, we just felt like there was magic in the room.
I love that story, and I love that the way you told it about your father Tug, and I know you've had an interesting life, and I can even tell that from this interview. Between I know you didn't meet your father Tug until he was much older, and until you were much older, and you were raised by your mother and your stepfather, and your Uncle Hank becomes this incredible man in your life, and then your mother encourages you to go to law school when it's very, very challenging to do so. it seems to me that you've had a very unconventional life in terms of your family. But I wanted to know, to close things off, what are some of the things about what you've learned by having the life that you've had that you bring to your own family, that you bring to your own daughters, that you bring to your life?
Well, I mean, first, I wanted my daughters to have a really stable family environment, which, as being a musician and their mom being a musician.
Chose to go on the road, with two musicians. That's easy.
And some of the challenges that I faced in being a musician personally, myself, the demons that I battled, I don't know that I've given them that stable of a life, but hopefully that I've given them sort of a perspective that I think, which is one of the most important words in the English language, is a perspective on who people are, who people can become, and who people can be given a chance.
Tim McGraw, I can't tell you what a joy. I was looking forward to talking to you, and I'm really glad we got a chance to speak. Thank you so much for your time.
Me too, man. It's good talking to you.